The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
All right, here we go. It is almost time for all the hay to be in the barn as we approach the end of the week. On a Thursday, we'll be joined by Josh Ward, and we've got a lot to talk about with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, and we look forward to visiting with Josh as he has the 5 bold predictions for the remainder of the season. Also on tap today with Caleb, we'll get to basketball powers ranked in the AP poll. Is that a trend? Week 7 picks and bets. And we will get to Texas A&M and Tennessee, a battle of NIL collectives. One other topic we definitely want to touch base on is Tennessee. Would they have ever hired Bobby Petrino back in 2017? That's a what the H, because goodness knows nobody thought it was going to be Jeremy Pruitt. So to say that it would have been Bobby Petrino or someone else. Caleb Calhoun, as I said, the hay's almost in the barn as we approach the end of the week, and this is a monster game for Tennessee. When you look at the rest of their schedule, this could swing the Vols one way or another, and that one way could be 10 wins. The other way could be as low as 7 or 6 wins. So there's a lot at stake against the Aggies this weekend in Neyland Stadium.
There's a ton at stake, honestly, for both teams. I mean, for Jimbo Fisher, if you're Jimbo Fisher, there's a lot at stake because you might be coaching for you don't want to say football life, but I mean, he might be coaching for his football life, if we're being honest. I think that even with all that cash, all that buyout money, at some point, they're going to have to give up on him, right? If he keeps losing in big games.
Yeah, I would think so. So what's the buyout after this year? Do you know?
I think it's still over $70 million. I don't know.
I think it's like 72. That's a lot of dollars to pony up, but at some point, you got to do it. Speaking of ponying up, is it time for Joe Milton III, Junior, Senior, Esquire to do so? I wrote on offthehooksports.com that you can check out and provided stats. I think bolstering my argument that Joe Milton is a game manager. And that leads us to today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, I believe that's where we are, that Joe Milton is a game manager. I thought there were some telling quotes by offensive coordinator Joey Halsley that essentially confirmed as much. And I think when you look at the stats, that is pretty much the case. Tennessee's a running football team, and they like to throw a lot of screens. And I think because of Joe Milton's inaccuracy, they're a little afraid to throw the ball downfield. So, Caleb, is Joe Milton a game manager first? But today's tough question is this. Is that an okay thing for the Vols? They don't have a Hendon Hooker, but let's remember, Hendon Hooker was one of the most highly regarded quarterbacks in the NFL draft in this past April. He would have gone higher had it not been for the ACL injury. So you're not going to have that type of guy every year. So I go back to T. Martin. Was T. Martin as great as Peyton Manning? No, T. Martin wasn't a game manager either. So maybe it's a bad comparison. But you can go from a great quarterback to a good quarterback and still be a very good football team. I'll ask you simply, is Joe Milton a game manager?
Yes. I mean, particularly relative to this era of college football, even more so, because you might see him end up with more yards and touchdowns than T. Martin, but Dave, that has to be graded on a curve, right? Given the style of play in college football today versus 1998.
Sure.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, the biggest reason he's a game manager is, where are most of his completions? The vast majority of his completions are behind the line of scrimmage. honestly. He's barely being trusted to complete anything over the middle or deep shots down the sideline. Now, in his defense, well, it's not really in his defense. I would have said in his defense, the deep balls aren't there like they were last year. And I would say it's because defense is adjusted. But the only reason they've adjusted is because they've been able to, because Joe Milton can't hit the simple passes over the middle, or he misreads a safety, or he underthrows a touchdown pass to a tight end. And because of that, I think that's the reason the deep shots aren't there. And so I think at this point, yes, he is a game manager, and that's okay. Look, I think we heard a lot of positive talk about Joe Milton in the offseason, but before that came about, my outlook for this year was that it was always a transition year. It was always a transition year for Joe Milton to be the caretaker of the program as Tennessee goes from Hendon Hooker to Nico Iamaleava. The same way I kept saying it, this Tennessee team is 2014 Clemson with Cole Stout. Everybody in Clemson knew that was a transition year from Taj Boyd to Deshaun Watson. And Cole Stout was just there to be the caretaker until Deshaun Watson was ready to go.
What if Cole Stout's ears are burning somewhere? I bet he didn't think he'd be the topic of conversation on an SEC / Tennessee show. That's a pretty good reference.
Yeah, I mean, you remember that Clemson team, right? I mean, it was obvious that Deshaun Watson was who everybody was waiting on to be the superstar quarterback. And whatever you think about Deshaun Watson personally, I have no defense of him, but just on the field, I think everybody knew that Taj Boyd had gone to the NFL. Deshaun Watson's going to be a star, but Deshaun Watson's not ready. So let's start Cole Stout this year, have a 9-4, 10-3 type season, and then we'll be ready to unleash with Deshaun Watson the next year. Everybody in Clemson knew that was the case. And I think that's the situation now.
On the message board, Halsley is a dope. Anyone who says Joe's playing at a really high level doesn't deserve to be the offensive coordinator of a middle school team. Now, let's be real. What
do you expect him to say?
Yeah, Halsley's not going to come out and say that this guy can't make the throws that you want him to. He's going to say what's right by his man, and that's exactly what he's doing. As a matter of fact, his quote, I want to get to that because it basically just says he's a game manager and they have little faith in him, reading in between the lines. It's brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Real estate experts with over 4 decades combined experience in East Tennessee. Best prices, best service in the Knoxville area. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. He says, quote, he's done a really good job of managing the game. He hasn't put the ball in a ton of precarious situations. We had a couple last week, which is really the first time, but he's done a good job of running the offense, not just trying to go out there and be an athlete with a big arm. So it sounds like to me that that despite the ability, that they're comfortable with him being a game manager, and they're not going to vary from that. I don't think you're going to see Joe Milton up and start to throw 75-yard passes down the field like he's known for. Caleb, it sounds like they're just fine with this, and they feel like they can win 9, 10, 11 games with him doing what he's doing and the rest of this football team continuing to fill out. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is an underrated aspect of Josh Heupel's system that nobody ever really paid attention to. And if you really follow Josh Heupel from when he was at Missouri to UCF to now Tennessee, there's this there's always the debate on does an offensive coach, do they force players into their system? Do you want that? Or do you want the David Cutcliffe, who was honestly, David Cutcliffe as an offensive coordinator was a mold of clay and just fully adapted to whatever his personnel was. I think Josh Heupel has done a pretty good job being a mix. Yes, he has a system, the wide splits, the up tempo, but he really adjusts to his personnel. And he did that a lot at other stops. I think there was one year at Missouri, he had a tight end be his leading receiver, which you don't really see with Josh Heupel. Then he had a wideout in 2021. He had a slot receiver in 2022. And now he's relying more heavily on the run game and screen passes. And I think the underrated, it reminds me of, again, not a fan of him as a person, but when Urban Meyer and Dan Mullen in 2006 had Chris Leak, didn't necessarily seem like a fit for their spread offense, but they successfully tweaked their spread offense to fit Chris Leak and what he was doing. And you see Josh Heupel, I think, tweaking significantly his offense. I made up a phrase for it last year. I call this offense the veer and shoot because it's a combination of the run and shoot, air raid, and the veer, I feel like, from back in the day. you're seeing him tweak that significantly this year. And honestly, that's although his talent evaluation is an issue, that's a major testament to him as a play caller and a game planner that he's done that.
Let's face it, with the transfer portal, you're going to crap out at quarterback every once in a while. And I'm not saying that Tennessee has, but if you look at Alabama, they're making the best of what they can with a bad situation. Roto22 says, I don't think enough is said about some of the good throws Milton has made. He has the ability to make good throws, but the talk is always if he has no ability whatsoever. I think he has plenty of ability, Roto22. He continues to say, if you go back and watch all of the games he got to play last year, he consistently made great throws, mop-up duty or not, the ability was still there. But here's the issue I have, Roto22, with what you're saying, is I go back to the Ole Miss game in 2021, and I just don't know that Joe Milton is 100% comfortable being a starting SEC quarterback, Caleb. And I know that perhaps the mentality is there, the physical ability, but I don't know that the mentality is, and I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah, I thought that was an issue from the start, is the confidence. And we talked about this. He panics. He panics the minute things spiral. And look, I know you have a good point. It's like it's only made worse by the fact that he's lost his starting job at 2 different schools. So I think now when things just go a little bit awry, he starts to panic and then it spirals. I think that's exactly what happened against Austin Peay. I don't think he panicked at Florida. That was a succession of things that honestly weren't necessarily his fault. I didn't blame him heavily for the Florida game, really. But against South Carolina, I do think he panicked a little bit. I just don't think it mattered because the run game was so dominant. But let's be honest, he throws that interception, spot South Carolina, a 10-7 lead. On the next drive, he missed one throw, and he actually missed Squirrel White on that 50-yard pass that I think changed the game. Squirrel White just made an amazing play on the ball. That was a terrible throw by Milton, if you go back and look at it. And so I think Joe Milton...
I'm completely with you. But Travis says here, I don't want to sound like a Joe Milton bashing session because it's not. Travis says if we were 5-1 after Saturday and we were in the SEC with wins over South Carolina and A&M, we should all be happy. Totally agree. 100% agree. And Joe Milton can do that. So game manager is kind of like the pain tolerance term. Quarterback/athletes don't like that because it questions their ability to run an offense as a quarterback or their toughness, respectively. So it's kind of one of those hot button terms. But it's not a bad thing for this football team and what they need this year. It's not as exciting as last year, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, game manager, I love when quarterbacks get mad about being a game manager. Okay, quarterbacks who get upset about that, guys, half the quarterbacks we talk about in football, we call them scrubs, can't play, waste of a roster spot. A game manager is a major step above that, isn't it, Dave? We're saying you're not going to be the one who could put this team on your back and win, but you can win games if you're in the right offense and with the right personnel. That's still a pretty good compliment at this level in the SEC.
Yep, absolutely. Tennessee and Texas A&M are a battle of football teams, but they're also a battle of collectives. You have Spire Sports Group at Tennessee, which we've all heard about, and the 12th Man Fund Texas A&M, and they top the list according to On3. You have to go to another school, another conference to find number 3. It's Division Street at Oregon is the name of their collective. Then the Texas One Fund at Texas, which Tennessee will need to keep an eye on with them coming in the SEC. And then the John Ruiz Canes connection at Miami. But let's face it, Texas A&M and Tennessee have done the best job of handling this ever-changing NIL collective agreement with the schools. And that's a good place to be right now, Caleb, is 1 or 2, because I don't think you're going to see any change anytime soon as far as how funds are divvied out to athletes and prospects. Let's just be honest. I mean, some of this money is going to prospects. It's not supposed to, but it is. So I think Tennessee's in a great spot there, but so is Texas A&M.
I agree. This is a huge deal. And for both schools, they need equalizers. I thought Texas A&M's great equalizer was joining the SEC 10 years ago because it would allow them to actually be on Texas level for Texas's prospects. And while they were, Oklahoma was still pickpocket. There was so much competition, they weren't able to really take that next step. Tennessee needs a great equalizer because they're just not in a state with a lot of great high school football talent compared to Georgia, Alabama, or LSU. NIL changes that for them. Texas A&M now with their NIL initiative is ahead of Texas, which is a big deal with Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC next year. And Tennessee now is going to be able to compete if they stay at this level in Georgia and Alabama and even Florida. Look, I think it's the battle of NILs. This is the Yankees and Red Sox, what you're watching right now. Now, of course, funny enough, the Yankees and Red Sox both missed the playoffs.
Right, but that's a great comparison. It is the battle of spending money. Would you rather be number one in NIL or number one in coaching?
Probably number one in NIL because you can find a coach at that point, quite honestly. I mean, if you're number one in coaching, so many things can go wrong when you're number one in coaching. That coach can leave.
Caleb, look at what's happened with the two best coaches in the SEC recently. Kirby Smart and some guy named Nick Saban at Alabama. Smart at Georgia. Stetson Bennett had limitations. He turned him into a great quarterback. At Alabama, now Nick Saban is finding his way with Jalen Milroe. They didn't have a good option there. I'd still rather have a great coach than a great collective.
Dave, I got a question for you.
Yes.
If recruiting was never a factor in college football.
It's the biggest factor.
It's the biggest factor.
It's the biggest factor.
It's the biggest factor. It's the biggest factor. But if recruiting was never a factor, would you take Josh Heupel or Nick Saban as a head coach?
Wow. It's a topic for another day that we want to save because that's pretty good. In this day and age, I would take Josh Heupel. If everybody has the same 85 is basically what you're saying, I would take Josh Heupel. But no doubt 10 years ago, I would have taken Nick Saban. And I might change my mind in a year. And the reason is because I think Nick Saban believes he's ahead of the curve. And Nick we trust is the old saying, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So if he's ahead of the curve, that offenses are going to be a little bit more ball control and they're going to be a little bit more balanced to help out the defense, then that's impressive because he was slightly behind the curve when he hired Lane Kiffin and went to a similar style of offense that Tennessee has now. Slightly behind the curve. He's slightly behind the curve on a lot of things, including NIL, but he took advantage of that with Jahmyr Gibbs. So I believe that he could prove me wrong in a year. But right now, I would I would take Josh Heupel. How's that for a soft, cold take? It's kind of lame. I know I'm supposed to come out and scream to the heavens that it should be one or the other, but right now I would think Heupel, but Saban thinks he's on to something, or he wouldn't have changed his offense.
Okay, so you would take Josh Heupel over Nick Saban. What program?
Again, for those just tuning in, if recruiting is not a factor.
If recruiting is not a factor. What program, all things being equal, is more likely to be successful if NIL is not a factor? Alabama or Tennessee?
Do you mean as a program as a whole? Like from
as a
the
whole,
foundation, yes. Its support. Well, it's Alabama.
It's Alabama.
Yeah.
And here's why I bring that up. That means that Alabama, yes, they struck gold with Nick Saban, but the thing is they can afford to hire bad coaches and move on, and it won't do long-term damage to the program because the infrastructure is there. With NIL, it's the same thing. And this is why I say I'd rather have NIL than a good coach. You have a bad coach. If your NIL program is set, you can fire that coach and you can go get a new coach who can handle that. I mean, look at it. NIL
You're basically talking about Texas A&M
and Tennessee if they had a bad coach, which they don't because they have a good coach, which is amazing for Tennessee. But I think NIL is the new being number one in NIL. Look, that almost makes Tennessee the new LSU of college football. And when I say LSU, I mean LSU hired bad coach after bad coach and still won national championships because they could just get talent easily. NIL is going to do the same thing for you. So, Dave, think about this. Okay, throw Alabama out the window. LSU has the second most national titles since 2000, and they've done it with 3 different coaches, 2 of the worst coaches in college football. It didn't matter if they had a good coach. They could get the talent. Isn't NIL going to be the same thing at that point?
Let me offer this, because one of the things I think Nick Saban's great on, and we're excluding recruiting, okay? But one of the things that he's great on is talent evaluation. Does he go crazy and gaga over a Dante Thornton? I say probably not. Let me ask you. Apex Apparel Group, design, brand, market, unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. They're right below. Support our sponsors. If you need your corporation to have fantastic swag, it is definitely Apex Apparel Group. So they're right below. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. Talent evaluation. Is that part of coaching or is that part of NIL? Because I can write you a blank check, but if you tell me that Dante Thornton's the next Randy Moss, then I got news for you. He ain't.
Yeah, talent evaluation is something I've underrated, honestly, in the past, and I need to stop. That's a huge, huge deal. And I think...
You know what? Can I make a weird comparison to talent evaluation?
Sure.
So one of my favorite things to do as a parent used to be I wouldn't do any Christmas shopping until like a couple of days before Christmas. Then I'd go into Toys R Us and I'd have $250 that I was going to spend on the kids. And I picked the things that they would play with longest. And if they were done with it 3 days after Christmas, I didn't do a good job. If they were still playing with it in January, I did a good job. Dante Thornton is falling on the depth chart in October. That is not a good job of talent evaluation.
No, it is not. It is absolutely not. It's also Josh Heupel, I think, right now doesn't have the luxury of talent evaluation given where Tennessee was at for a while. And maybe he'll get better, but I've been criticizing Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel, what I'm saying about Josh Heupel is what Patriots fans should be saying about Bill Belichick right now. Everybody's questioning Belichick's coaching ability. No, it's Belichick the GM is bad. It's not that Belichick the coach is bad. It's Belichick the GM is bad. Josh Heupel right now, the issue, the biggest question for him is talent evaluation, because you're right. That was Nick Saban's biggest strength. And we're actually seeing that with his assistants. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt was, whatever else he was, a superb talent evaluator. I mean, one of the best in college football.
I agree. And that sounds weird to say. Maybe they should have gone with Petrino over Bullethead. We'll discuss that later in the program. Josh Ward will join us from the Sports Animal. We always love visiting with Josh. And look at me. I can see Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Enjoy life better when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye examinations. That's me. No contacts, no glasses. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. ccteyes.com. ccteyes.com. Local doctors that care. There is a difference. Josh Ward, 5 bold predictions for the Vols as it feels like the halfway mark of the season, even though it technically isn't. Here we go with Josh Ward next. And also later on the program, I'm looking forward to diving into, would Tennessee football have ever hired Bobby Petrino? And would that have been better than Bullethead Jeremy Pruitt? 2 minutes. Josh Ward next off Thug Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at tristarhatsco.com. That's tristarhatsco.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to tristarhatsco.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOK. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. tristarhatsco.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
A college football tradition like no other.
Yes, sirree, boys and girls.
Or a guy that just won't leave.
Wow, that is sad.
The Dave Hooker Show. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Back to Dave Hooker.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and bring in our special guest each and every week on a Thursday. It is Josh Ward of the Sports Animal, who writes 5 bold predictions. That is on offthehooksports.com. Is it up now, Caleb, or will we have it up in a bit?
We'll have it up in a bit.
We'll have it up in a bit, so we get the tease now. Josh, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Good morning, guys.
I want to ask you a kind of odd question. So we were talking about this earlier. If recruiting's not a factor whatsoever, would you take Nick Saban or Josh Heupel? If everybody's playing with the same 85 guys. That's a curveball, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see by your face. You're like, why don't we talk about my 5 bold predictions, Dave? Jackwagon.
I'd take Saban. I know that's not popular. I know people love Heupel, and they should. And if you take Heupel, you shouldn't apologize for that. But I'll take the guy that's won all those national titles.
That's fair.
I saw him in 01. I know that's a long time ago, but I saw him take an LSU team against Tennessee that was loaded with players, that was the favorite, and win. So I think people often look at having the best players and think that that's just super easy, and it creates clear advantages, but there is a lot of management that comes with all that talent. So I'll still take the guy that's won more than everybody.
Yeah,
it's a great.
Fair. Go ahead, Caleb. Sorry.
So I was just going to say, yeah, that's a great. Look, I go back and it's every Tennessee fan has only thought about that as how bad of a loss it is in Tennessee history. But honestly, you look at it from the other side, that might be the greatest coach game by any coach in history, what Nick Saban did to Tennessee in that 2001 LSU title game. Losing his quarterback and his running back, adjusting on the fly and winning. That was incredible that he did that.
Yeah, I was there in 07, Dave. I think we maybe rode back from Tuscaloosa together. But 07, Saban's first year, they have these suspensions at the start of the game. They're already that's not a great team. They were actually more competitive. Their record wasn't very good. They go 6-6 in the regular season his first year there, lost to Louisiana Monroe. It's his worst team he's had there, right? And they just whipped Tennessee, and they went onside kick to open the game. I remember the press box, they announced these suspensions because they had like a textbook scandal, which is so silly now when you think about that's what. But anyway, that's what he was dealing with. He went out and just took it to Tennessee. So I'll take the guy with all those titles.
Well, it's probably a good thing as at least a point of conversation. Let's get to Josh's 5 bold predictions, and kudos for Josh. I used to hate doing these things because you want to make them bold, but you don't want somebody to say, taking receipts and look back and say, that Josh guy's an idiot. 6 weeks from now.
Yeah, opportunities there.
There you go. So I appreciate you doing that and taking one for the team. 4 Downs is right now. It's brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, here we go. Josh has them, and as always, it'll be Cooper Mays setting us up. And Coop, what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thanks, Coop. 1st down, and actually we're going to go 5 downs because we're going to Colorado, Nebraska style, because Josh wrote 5 bold predictions. So
no, it's Colorado, Missouri. Colorado, Missouri.
Sorry. Well, the problem is I just hate Missouri. All right, so here we go. It is 4 down, so we'll do 2 first downs. We'll call a penalty on the first down.
Coop here. First down.
Thanks, Coop. Josh Heupel will win a game scoring less than 30 points. That is a bold prediction. Why, Josh?
Because he's never done it, and he's halfway through year 6 as a head coach, and he scored 30 plus in a lot of games, so it's not his fault for putting up that many points so many times. But the record at this point says if he doesn't get to 30, then he's in a lot of trouble. So I'm going to say that he wins a game scoring less than 30 points. And I picked the game. I can go ahead and give that tease as well. It's this week. It's going to happen in 3 days. I think this is a lower scoring game, and I do think Tennessee will win. And it's a close enough line, I think, from Vegas, and the teams match up pretty evenly to where I think picking the game this week has a little bit of bold flavor. So to say that it's under 30 and it's this week and it's the first time in his coaching career, it's doable. So I wanted to start out with a doable, bold prediction.
I agree with that, Caleb.
Hey now. I fully agree with that. And I'm going to talk about this in my gambling picks later in the show, but I'm with Josh. I'm very high on Tennessee not scoring 30 this weekend and still winning.
Okay, so go ahead, Josh.
No, that's good. I'm getting a little confidence here out of my bold picks to start.
All right, so there was a false start. So what down is it, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
James Pierce will record.
First and 15.
Yes, it's first and 15. We're going to convert. James Pierce will record 10-plus sacks. He's been compared to Leonard Little. I'm totally with you with this, Josh.
Hey now.
I think he's a special pass rusher.
When I was curious, how often does it happen? Because 10 sacks is a pretty big number, and of course you have more games to work with. I recognize, but it's happened. It's happened 3 times, or 3 players, have done it since 2000, and Derek Barnett did it 3 times. Man, that really adds to what he was at Tennessee. It's incredible. Kurt Magid and then John Henderson did it. There's an Outland Trophy winner, but by my count, 10 players, or it's happened 10 times. I keep skipping over it. It's happened 10 times, 3 times by Derek Barnett in Tennessee's history, according to UT's record book. So it's rare. James Pierce is a sophomore who has already shown his talent, and now I think has become a guy that opposing teams have to pay attention to. I'm just not sure that it's going to matter that much. So I'm going to say in the next 7 games, he can get 5 more and get to 10-plus sacks this season.
10-plus sacks, Caleb, you on board or not?
Again, Josh nailed this one. I'm hugely on board with this. I think that
Josh, you should have been more bold and said 20 sacks.
Well, in Josh's, honestly, it's funny because these are literally bold predictions, because when we put these on the site, the actual predictions, each 5, we put them in bold so you can see them.
Yes, they are in bold font as well. Herald Group Security Solutions Leadership.
Yeah, so you can't argue. I made them bold before they even happened.
You say Tennessee will play a game on Saturday, but they're in bold font, so they count. I really like your next one, and it's brought to you by Herald Group Security Solutions, leadership experience specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, making your children safer one school at a time. Highly trained security individuals. They can work in private schools now. We're working towards public schools, heraldgrp.com. Tell your school administrator about Herald Group Security Solutions. Let's make this happen. So we're officially on 2nd down after the false start.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
Thank you, Jacob. That was the wrong button.
Cooper Mays here. 2nd down.
All right. Tennessee's next 5 SEC games will be decided by less than 10 points. Josh, that's pretty tight. 10 cumulative points or 10 points per game?
Total of 10 points over 5 games is going to be an average of 2-point margin over the next 5. No, 5 straight single-digit games in the SEC. I didn't say 5 next 5 games because you have UConn that Tennessee should win by double digits, and then it stops before Vanderbilt because, again, Tennessee should win by double digits there. And I think that's bold because it includes Bama on the road, and Bama will be more than a touchdown favorite, I think, in that game. And then Georgia is really good. And then the variance of these other games. So, there's a chance that it's a one-score game and a touchdown is tacked on at the end of one of these. But I think all 5 of these competitive games, as they're set to be going in, all being settled by single digits, I think it's a pretty bold prediction.
I think there will be one that might be more than 10 that might get out of hand. That just seems like a little much to me, but it is a bold prediction. Caleb, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this isn't going to happen. It's I think that, and it's more me being high on Tennessee. I can't see them.
So you have them beating Georgia by 14. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Georgia's the one they blow out. No,
making sure we're on the same page.
Look, I want to be honest. I don't know if Heupel's ever going to just beat Missouri by 1 score. I don't. I feel like even at Missouri at their best, I think Heupel is going to be on a mission to blow them out, because my understanding, and I have to go on good authority, he really wanted that job 3 years ago.
Yeah, I agree with you on his motivation. So Josh Heupel will try to prove me wrong in that game, given the opportunity. I agree with you there. The last 2 games, I think, are the boldest of takes because of what Tennessee has been able to do to Missouri the past 2 seasons. On the road, though, the week before Georgia, going there in November, that's not an easy spot. I don't think it is right now. And then people know about the history with Georgia over the last few years. So that's why I thought it was bold. We'll see if it happens.
Yep, here we go. What down is it, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Making up yards. Squirrel White, receiver, will hit 1,000 receiving yards. Where is he now, Josh?
He's not close. I mean, he's not close. He's at 276. But in the most recent game, he had 9 targets. In the Clemson game, he had a bunch of targets. I know that's going back to last season, but my point there is that they've got to go to Squirrel. I think he's going to be a target monster the rest of the way. He has to average about 103.5 yards per game. That is a big ask. And 2 concerns. One, there's just no margin for error. If he has one bad game, then he probably can't get there. Also, that amount of targets, that amount of volume, the fear with him is going to be injury. And that would be bad for him if he gets hurt in trying to prove me right. More importantly, for everybody watching right now, that'd be bad for Tennessee's offense, because if you take out Squirrel White, I'm not sure where their confidence is right now for big-time volume. There are other guys that have to step up. Jacob Warren, who we heard from, is going to be very important. But in terms of a ton of targets, a ton of big play opportunities over the next 7 weeks, I think that's easily Squirrel White. So I'm going to say he has a couple of games where he just kind of blows up. They need him to have a big week this week, I think, against Texas A&M. So my bold prediction is that he blows up in the second half of the season and gets to 1,000 yards.
Caleb, what about Dante Thornton, or as you like to call him, Randy Knott? Sorry. All the Randy Knott comparisons, Josh, was driving me crazy in the offseason.
I never compared him to Randy Moss. No, I never did that. I'm not that crazy. Yes. Yeah. I am very obviously low on Dante Thornton. I'm with Josh on this, largely because Brew McCoy is out, and I don't think Tennessee's going to find a replacement, and we know what Squirrel White can do. So I think it's a tall task, but I think he can get to 1,000. Maybe not in the regular season, but by the bowl game, he'll do it. Mm-hmm. And particularly because all the passes behind the line of scrimmage, Squirrel White's probably going to catch most of those going forward. And just a quick stat, Josh Heupel as head coach only had 1 year where he didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver. That was his first year as head coach ever at UCF, and they went undefeated in the regular season that year.
It's a good stat. All right, this is my favorite one.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Nico. We talk some Nico. Will take a meaningful snap this season. I've argued that he should have already. But Josh, let me just hand over the reins to you and you tell me why.
I have fear with Joe holding up the rest of the way. And Tennessee's coaches have, they've stuck to Joe. That is their guy. There is no question who QB1 is in this offense for Tennessee. But he went down against UTSA, was able to get back up, was able to play through the rest of the game, was not 100%. I'm not sure in that game he was close to it. He was not 100% the next week against South Carolina. He's had 2 weeks to get healthier, but he's going to get tackled again. If he's going to be a part of the running game, which we've seen he needs to be as the rest of the season goes along, my fear for him is that he goes down again. So I don't know if this is a start, but at some point in a game this season, and I told you earlier, I think Tennessee's going to be in a bunch of close games. I think Nico is going to be needed to play at least one meaningful snap, and realistically more than one meaningful snap if the prediction comes true.
Let me ask you guys both this. Start with Caleb. Does he get a meaningful snap aside from injury?
I'm still going to say no.
You going to say no, Josh? Caleb?
I'm going to say yes, and here's why. You ready for this? Tennessee doesn't make the college football playoff. Joe Milton opts out of the bowl game. Nico Iamaleava gets his first start in the bowl game.
I think he'll play at some point a meaningful snap, despite from injury. I don't know about the bowl game. I don't know that Milton would he opt out? I mean, is he that good where he would say I'm cruising on out of here?
I think Joe Milton's measurables and his physical tools are what's going to get him drafted, and the more he plays, the more it hurts him. So honestly, I don't think he's going to want to play the bowl game.
All right, let's go. What the H, and it has to do with a coaching hire that was made that Tennessee fans lament. What were you going to say, Josh? You're about to say something.
Well, not necessarily, but I do agree with Caleb on the pro prospect of Joe. I think it's about what his physical tool set is. So I don't think he's going to be Anthony Richardson, top 5, top 10 in the NFL draft, but he's going to be drafted for sure, and he will have something to protect probably at the end of the season. I don't know if he opts out, but he'll have something to protect, I think, for the pros.
I think he's a really good kid, a good locker room guy, so that would surprise me based off what I hear. But who knows? That's not necessarily a bad move anymore.
Yeah. Travis is asking, does the bowl game count as a meaningful snap? I think to most fans it will, but that is a funny question.
Well, just before we move on, too, you got to people get mad at players opting out, but if you're in a meaningless bowl game, you want that. Don't you want your young guys getting the reps to prepare for next year anyway? Like, what good does a guy who's not going to be there next year, what good is he playing in a bowl game that's not a championship game?
Yeah, they should just shoot him in the leg.
Well, it's all narrative, because if you go out there with the guy who's up next and he doesn't perform well, then it just creates an off-season of terror.
So does shooting someone in the leg. It's an off-season of terror.
Again, that depends on what happens next. So
All right, what the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
How close, Josh, do you think Tennessee was to hiring Bobby Petrino instead of bullet head Jeremy Pruitt?
I don't
What
think
part
very
of that question do you find funny?
The last part. I don't think very close.
Well, okay. Caleb, you're the one who brought this up. I don't think he was very close either. How would you compare?
They tried to hire some coaches that fans didn't want, but I don't think it was close to getting to be Petrino.
Caleb, so you brought this question up, and you're a big Petrino guy. So where
did you get that?
Why did you bring this up in the first place?
I love riding on motorcycles with Petrino, let me tell you. I'm just kidding. So this actually, the interesting part of this story, and Josh probably remembers this. Don't go to 2017 when Butch was fired. Go back to 2016 when Butch first got on the hot seat. I think the hot seat really exploded after his loss to South Carolina off the bye week. Everybody was talking about Bobby Petrino over everybody else when this talks of Butch Jones getting fired at that point happened. And the reason was Bobby Petrino was rolling at Louisville. Lamar Jackson was en route to a Heisman Trophy campaign season. And everybody highly believed in Bobby Petrino's offensive abilities. Now, 2017, Louisville took a major step back, and there was the baggage with Bobby Petrino, and I don't think he was that close to getting hired in 2017. But had he carried the momentum over that he had in 2016, yeah, I think Bobby Petrino would have been number one on Tennessee's list, baggage and all.
Boy, Josh, that would be, to me, the worst possible hire, because you're like Butch Jones. You just kind of keep them afloat. You're not ever competing for championships, and it drags on and on. That would be the worst case scenario. Well, Pruitt was a pretty bad.
Yeah, I think they found worst case scenario. I think that one hit. So, I know this is the hindsight 2020 part, but yeah, I think they got it right. If worst case scenario was the goal, with how that whole thing unfolded, unless they were really playing the long game to try to get Josh Heupel to come to Knoxville, then job well done. But yeah, I just Caleb's point might be right. I just don't recall him ever being a realistic name talked about. So that's why I said no. I don't think it was close. I don't remember him being somebody that was discussed as somebody that would be a real candidate for the Tennessee job. Dan Mullen was somebody that Tennessee really wanted. He ended up at Florida, of course, and we know about the Schiano attempt and then the names after that. But I don't recall Petrino being a strong candidate that Tennessee was going to pursue.
No, and on the message board, David says Pruitt looks like Moose from Night Court. Are you too young to remember Moose from Night Court, Josh?
Not at all. I remember Night Court and was I'm not a big fan, but I was a fairly regular viewer of, scrolling through. Would it pop up on Nick at Night at times? I don't recall the channels, but yeah, I saw Nick or I saw Night Court a number of times.
Yeah, who was the public defender? What was her name?
Wasn't that big of a fan.
She did good work. All right, well, Josh, at least with Pruitt, you had a good talent evaluator who left some talent for Josh Heupel, right?
That part is true. I've actually defended Pruitt recently on the radio a few times because Josh Heupel inherited a very difficult position. There's no denying that. I think everybody agrees. But I do think it's been overstated how bad the roster was because there were a lot of NFL guys, and some of them had to be developed more, and the coaching staff that's on campus now deserves credit for that. But Darnell Wright was a major talent that was left behind. Cooper Mays, the starting center, how much have we talked about how important he is on the offensive line? His brother Cade was on the line for that first year taking over, and a bunch of other guys, Alontae Taylor, who was a standout player at corner, Velus Jones. That would be a really good example of the coaching staff getting more out of him in year one, and then Jalen Hyatt after that. But there was talent left behind for the coaching staff. They needed more. They still need more to go compete for championships, I think, in the SEC or to try to win a national title. But there were some players left behind that were brought in by Jeremy Pruitt.
Is there any coach in retrospect that Tennessee was in conversations with when they hired Jeremy Pruitt that would have been a worse coach, again, with hindsight being 2020, than Jeremy Pruitt?
That would have been worse?
There's not one, is there?
Well, like Kevin Steele, I never understood any possible benefit there. I do think this, though, if you're the head coach of Tennessee, you're going to recruit well enough where you're going to have some players. I think it's impossible to recruit poorly unless you take an approach like Derek Dooley did, where he decided we're not going to sign an offensive lineman in 2012. But Derek Dooley brought in talent overall. They always end up having some players. So knowing what was going on behind the scenes, the result of the 2020 season. But I mean, let's be honest, like the cheating part, that's not the big deal to me. It's how sloppy they were with the cheating, how easy it was to get caught, which actually ended up benefiting Tennessee. So I can't really come up with a worst case in terms of just where things were, the leadership, all that. Yeah.
I would argue they would have gone down the same path with Kevin Steele. And I don't know Kevin Steele as a person, but Josh, I would think that felt like a little bit Philip Fulmer trying to give John Chavis a head coaching job and Kevin Steele. And he would have had the same desperation not being a head coach to tempt himself to pay players.
Well, some of the stuff we hear about Pruitt away from the field when he had to be in that representative of UT role, and I just don't think he was comfortable with it. Kevin Steele would have understood all of that. He would have handled that well. Again, I think he would have recruited well enough. Maybe he would have said, Michael Penix will take you. Pruitt didn't do that. The one area where Pruitt just kept making mistakes was in quarterback evaluation. He recruited well, or he identified players at all other positions, but he screwed up quarterback recruiting, but brought in Hendon Hooker. Like I went over the names that he left behind. I skipped over Hendon. So that was a parting gift that he got Hendon to transfer to Tennessee. And again, Tennessee's coaching staff helped him go to an even higher level to be what he was at Tennessee. But the high school recruiting at quarterback from Jeremy Pruitt was as bad as I've seen.
All right, I'm gonna let you out of here, Josh. But let me pull up a couple of quick names on the message board. You tell me if they would have been better off with this person or Pruitt. Let's start with Mike Gundy.
Better or worse than Pruitt?
Better, right?
Significantly better, yeah.
Okay. Kevin Sumlin on the message board. Better or worse than Pruitt?
On the field, probably. Well, they went 3-7. Better.
All right, better. And then lastly, the most important one, Marky Post. Would they have done better with Marky Post as a head coach from Night Court?
Push.
Thank you, Josh. Anything else you would like to add?
No, I think we're all going to be proven right on Saturday in our predictions about Tennessee winning by under 30 points. Or this time next week, we'll be talking about how dumb we looked this past Saturday. But that's the point of the bold prediction column. So if you want to call me dumb for my first prediction, Dave and Caleb are on board with me. So you have to call them that too.
Yes, I was actually on board with all of them, kind of for different reasons, except for the 10-point ones. I thought you did a fantastic job, and I'm not just saying that. I thought that was really strong.
Yeah, thanks. Last one. This is actually an idea that I've been behind with different programs, Tennessee included. Coach from coach would have done great. I think if you went to Kyle Chandler and said, "Hey, we just want you to come in and play the role of Coach Taylor from Friday Night Lights, and then we'll hire good staff members to actually do the coaching, but you do the speeches and the inspiration and all that stuff." I think the staff would have recruited just fine. I think getting like Kyle Chandler to be Coach Taylor or coach college and pro, right? I think that would have been better than Jeremy Pruitt as the head coach.
The question
You're describing Ed Orgeron, by the way.
The question is, do you get Dauber?
You know, it's funny.
Dauber?
Yeah, Dauber. You got to have the right staff members. It's not a head coach is only as good as his staff a lot of the time. I think that's proven true. But the funny thing is that Orgeron won a title, but I made the joke about LSU. It's like, if you're going to hire Ed Orgeron, just go hire Kyle Chandler. That's, I think, the first time I remember making that joke. They won a title with Ed, but in hindsight, maybe they should have replaced him with Kyle Chandler. Kyle Chandler wouldn't have been doing the weird videos that Brian Kelly is doing right now.
Yeah. Josh always makes me laugh. He made me think with 5 bold predictions. It's on offthehooksports.com. Thank you, Josh. Noon to 3 on the Sports Animal. Follow him at Josh_Ward. Great stuff. And I'm sorry about your Braves when they get knocked out of the playoffs.
It's inevitable at this point, so I appreciate the support.
Bryce Harper lives in Knoxville. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks.
He is Josh Ward. Caleb, when I look at the Jeremy Pruitt hire, it's so, and it feels like the Kevin Steele hire. It feels like not just a hire of desperation, but a hire of hope, because Philip Fulmer saw John Chavis want to be a head coach and never could do that. And it was almost like, come on, Kevin or Jeremy or whoever that guy may be that wants that head coaching job. I can make this happen for you, which is not the way you hire coaches.
Not at all. Well, there was also this. I think, look, every other candidate that was on that list were high-profile candidates before Fulmer was athletic director. Let's be honest, Dave. Fulmer wanted somebody where if they got the credit, he would get the credit. And I think
you would by elevating an assistant, right?
Oh, yeah, you would. And because, again, he could be the guy who said, I found Jeremy Pruitt. I mean, I remember when Fulmer started interviewing, the candidates he was interviewing Les Miles and Mel Tucker. And I mean,
I would have been on board with Mel Tucker at the time, actually.
Oh, I would have been on board with Mel Tucker, too. It's just funny how that worked out. But he ended up landing Jeremy Pruitt. Now, look, the way it worked out, is Tennessee at a better... Now, the question is, forget what they would have done on the field. Mike Gundy, Kevin Sumlin, you name it. Is Tennessee better off now, right now, in this moment, than they would have been had they hired Mike Gundy or Kevin Sumlin back in 2017?
Well, let me address that, and I might write a column on that. First, I'll remind you that you need to check out the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2 T's, hemphousechat.com. use the promo code HOOK to get 10% off. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. I think because his buffoonery and the way he cheated and the fact that Tennessee didn't have to make a buyout payment every month for the next 30 years, the fact that he was a good talent evaluator and he got talent into Tennessee, some of which helped Tennessee get to 10 wins last year and be a college football playoff participant or contender, I should say, until the very end. I don't think any of those guys would have left Tennessee in a better position in 2022 than Jeremy Pruitt would have. How bizarro is that?
It's incredibly bizarro. So one of the things we do as history, for those who know, I am a history major. We study, we debate the concept of accelerationist policies, which I don't know if you know what that means, Dave, but it's the idea that it's a theory that some things in history that were really, really bad, it was good that they were really, really bad. What was it good that they were so bad because of what came out of it? So like the most obvious example is like the Civil War was really, really bad. 600,000 people died, but slavery ended because the Civil War happened. So it's what, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, or the Great Depression was bad. A lot of economic issues, but there were a lot of reforms that came out of the Depression that made sure we never had another Depression. And it's like, okay, but was the Depression itself worth the cost? Was it worth the cost of the Depression for that to happen? And
Are we comparing Jeremy Pruitt's tenure at Tennessee to the Great Depression and slavery? Is that what we're doing?
No, what I'm saying is, okay,
or the Civil War, I guess I should say.
Yeah,
excuse me.
Yeah, it would be the Civil War. Do you believe in accelerationism, which is sometimes things can get so bad that they actually make things good later?
I think it happened with Tennessee. Now, to argue against myself, they have the Spire Group either way, right? So the Spire Group is going to help whatever coach comes in 2021.
But would they have managed it as well?
Fair point.
Because honestly, let's be honest, the best part about this was the Schiano disaster made them finally cut ties with Jimmy Haslam. Then after the Fulmer thing, they forced Fulmer out and they go, okay, we're going for a national search on an AD, and we're not going to let the Haslams run it. And they found the best AD they have found in a long time.
Speaking of Philip Fulmer, you can check out his video on our YouTube channel, the Celebrate 98 series. Also, if you would like a copy of the Celebrate 98 book, the Untold Stories Behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 National Championship, you can order that right below. And we are continuing the Give Him Six campaign. $6 for every book will go to Brew McCoy's chosen charity, which is the Peyton Walker Foundation, which provides the shocking units that they can bring you back to life with. What are those called again, Caleb? I have trouble with that acronym. AEDs?
APB. No, the APB is something.
The AED. I think they're the AEDs.
Okay.
Okay, but it's something that every school or every football program should have. So we're glad to get back and hate that for.
Yeah, it's AEDs. It's called AEDs. Good call.
You can order right below, and we greatly appreciate it. And I hope you like the book. It's a lot of new content that you didn't know about the 98 team. So there will be other books out there, but we didn't want to rehash what had already been reported. So certainly check it out. Makes a great Christmas gift, but we're going to extend out that Give 'Em Six campaign through the end of the week. And then we're going to have a special announcement about the book, I believe, next week. So Basketball Powers ranked in the AP poll. Is that a trend or is that actually a thing? Brought to you by our friends at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Rick Terry Jewelry Design has affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition? RickTerryJewelry.com, RickTerryJewelry.com. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here, and it's right down there below. You can order the book as well. In 2 minutes, why being a basketball power doesn't mean that you're a football nobody. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at ccteyes.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor, that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place, with a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
You just saw our commercial for Tennessee Cider Company. Use the promo code HAT, and you'll get some free swag with any order of cider that is fantastic, and you can have it delivered almost anywhere in the United States of America. The original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Use that promo code HAT to receive some free swag with your cider order, available most anywhere in the United States of America. Question on the message board: why are we not hearing more about Nathan Leacock? Your thoughts? I mean, why? We're talking about Webb and Nimrod being the replacements for Brew McCoy. Why are we not hearing? It's something I'm going to ask around about, but it seems like he's been lost in the shuffle, Caleb.
I think the biggest reason we're not hearing about him is because I think he's the better one of the 3, but I've said this for a while. I think when Josh Heupel gives preferential treatment to 2 types of players. Players he signed, number 1, and then seniority among the players he signed. I'm not saying that's smart. I'm not saying that's how you should do it, but I think because Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod are older than Nathan Leacock, I think Josh Heupel has a bit of a cockiness to him that I think it's similar to Chip Kelly, which is, I found these guys. I'm obviously not wrong on them, guys. Don't you understand? I'm the one who's right. So I know because I found them and because they're older, they're the better players.
Interesting. That may have been the case with Joe Milton. I think that we all think that that's a real possibility. If that's the case, then that is a shortcoming in his coaching ability. If you're making personnel decisions based off your preferences on recruiting or who you were left with and who you went out and got, that's something that you shouldn't do.
It's absolutely not something you should do, but I think Heupel believes in it heavily. By the way, Lane Kiffin did this back in the day. Lane Kiffin's 1 year at Tennessee. How many times, Dave, did you see him try to force freshmen onto the field that shouldn't have been ready to go? And I mean, he dismissed players so many times to try.
Well, no, let's make an argument that you do get younger players that are going to be in the system for longer. That doesn't stand up with the Milton Hooker debate, but if you're running guys off, if you're not playing guys you inherited, part of that could be because you get your guys for longer. Now that makes a little bit of sense if it's a 50-50 call.
But it wasn't in some cases. Okay, for instance, Montario Hardesty was.
I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying philosophically.
Yeah, Montario Hardesty was obviously the starting back for Tennessee during that time. But every time they got to the goal line, I felt like he would try to put Bryce Brown in, and Bryce Brown did not have the vision to punch it in on like a 3rd and goal from the 2 at that time. And it just seemed like he was trying to get Bryce Brown those touchdowns so he could sell the fact that, look at what I'm doing with the number 1 recruit that I got to Tennessee.
Nope. I agree. All right, let's take a look at my computer playing loudly for some reason. Let's take a look at some basketball blue bloods in college that are having some fantastic success, which is not easy to do. We talked about this previously. You have to spend about 10 times more to be a successful football program than a basketball program. But we're seeing some basketball programs that we would view as basketball first and maybe only as making a big impact in college football, probably led by North Carolina and Duke. Caleb, is this a trend or is this just something we're seeing for the short term?
Well, obviously we have to see how the season plays out because a lot of teams start out 4-0, 5-0, and then don't finish off in the top 25 because their schedule picks up. I will say that the stat here is that the 6 teams that have spent the most time in history ranked in the AP basketball poll are all ranked in the AP football poll right now, which that's the first time in history that's happened, which is North Carolina, Duke, Louisville, Kansas, UCLA, and Kentucky. I think it's a trend. And I think it's a trend, Dave, because I think there has been a shift among athletic directors at basketball schools who are starting to realize that if you invest in basketball first, your football program collapses. But if you invest in football first, your basketball program can be there and be fine.
No, wait. If you invest in basketball first, well, I mean, Duke and North Carolina invested in basketball first.
No, I don't mean like first, like ever. I mean, like if you prioritize basketball, your football program collapses. If you prioritize football, you'll have, and you do a good job of it at it, you'll have, that will create enough revenue to invest in the basketball program, and you'll be right there with people who are investing in basketball first.
So isn't this what Mark Stoops is going through right now?
It's exactly what he's going through. And by the way,
the donors want their money to go to basketball for the most part in Kentucky, unlike other SEC school, right?
Yeah. It's funny you bring up Mark Stoops because I think the longest tenured AD right now is Mitch Barnhart at Kentucky, and I think he's one of the best. He took over in 2002. Dave, think about it. He hired Rich Brooks in 2003, and then he hired Mark Stoops in 2013. He's actually made more of an effort to invest in Kentucky football than any other athletic director in the past, and it's been a long-term process. Duke, Kevin White was the athletic director who hired David Cutcliffe. Let's be honest, when they hired Cutcliffe, it was very clear they decided we're not going to just ignore football anymore. And then Kevin White retired in 2021. Nina King came in. She is the one who found Mike Elko. She's been very committed to the football program since then. I think it helps that Nina King came from Notre Dame, which obviously is a football first school. And you have my favorite name of all athletic directors, Bubba Cunningham. That just sounds like an offensive lineman on a football team. But
like Bob Cooter.
Exactly. But he's the athletic director at UNC. He took over in 2011, hired Larry Fedora, and then he's hired Mac Brown back, and he got Michael Jordan and the Jordan brand to go all in on even the football program. In Kansas, you saw Jeff Long get hired in 2018, coming from Arkansas. He brought in Les Miles. Now, they both had to go because of a sexual harassment scandal involving Les Miles' tenure at LSU. Not Les Miles himself, but what was happening at LSU. But you saw with that move with Jeff Long, they were like, okay, let's invest more in football. And now they have a new athletic director. His name is Travis Goff, and he's all in on football. So I think you're seeing athletic directors realize that even in Louisville, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, Louisville has been doing this for 30 years. Dating back to 1991, when they brought in Howard Schnellenberger, Louisville decided, even at the height of the Denny Crum years, we're going to go all in on football. And they built Papa John Stadium in 1998, I think it was. And they have gone all in, and it's been a 30-year process. And what they realized, and what I think they were ahead of the curve of everybody, realizing that if we go heavy into football, basketball will be fine.
Are we beyond the point in the SEC where you take the Doug Dickey approach where you just say, let basketball do whatever it does because it's not the main money driver? I understand you need to invest in football first, but I go back to the story, and I've told this before with you. Terry Fair didn't know who Tennessee was before he saw the Lady Vols. So I think you want men's is a revenue generator, women's is not. I think you want to be good across the board so that you bring in free advertising, because when Lady Vols are in the Final Four, everybody's watching. It's during the men's Final Four weekend on a Saturday. How do they do it? They do it like a Sunday, Tuesday, I believe, as opposed to the Saturday, Monday, the men's. So everybody's watching. That commercial is monster huge. And Terry Fair is one that would have never even known about Tennessee had it not been for the Lady Vols. So I don't think it's that. I think it's more important, but it needs to at least be that. And under Doug Dickey, it wasn't even that at times. He didn't care about style of play. Kevin O'Neill had some success, but it was boring. And they made the Jerry Green hire, which I don't think they did a lot of research on. So, Caleb, it needs to be more than just an advertisement for your school.
Yeah, that time period was a reflection of I think Doug Dickey had his own biases and just didn't care about basketball himself. I mean, he's a football guy. I think most good athletic directors, and Doug Dickey was good as a football athletic director, but most athletic directors who were not short-sighted would have cared about basketball then. I think that, yes, I'm not saying don't invest in basketball. You should invest in prior and take other sports seriously. I think the way you should approach this, though, is if we go all in on football, then we can use the excess revenue, particularly with TV networks. Now, all of this changed with the SEC network in 2014. Okay, and the Big Ten network before that. I think athletic directors started to realize that with these television networks, football is going to be the engine that drives the train. We need to go all in on football. Look, I can tell you right now, living up in the DC area, I had a lot of fights with Maryland fans who were mad that Maryland was, and this is a fight you have at basketball schools. They were upset that Maryland was throwing away tradition by leaving the ACC to go joining the Big Ten. And they're like, why would you do that? The ACC is a basketball school, conference, we're a basketball school. And I said at the time, I'm like, look, football's driving this train. And if you want basketball to even be relevant in the future, you need to make the move based on football to the Big Ten. 10 years later, with the ACC about to crumble, it was a genius move for Maryland to do it. It was a genius move for Rutgers to do it. Man, they fleeced the Big Ten, convincing the Big Ten to take them. But I think that, and this is the fight you have. Athletic directors oftentimes have fights at these schools. A lot of times don't want to invest in college football. They don't want to care about it. They don't care if it exists. And I think athletic directors are fighting the battle to say, you guys need to understand that this is the most, I don't care if you were a basketball school, college football is more important. And you have to understand that we have to make our moves based on football.
Caleb Calhoun will make you money. There's no question about that. Let's get to some. Are we already in week 7? Am I reading that headline right?
Week 7.
Can't be
week 7, halfway through the regular season.
Can't be the case. It's just so not right. But week 7, here we go. Caleb is killing it, I hope. How are you doing so far this year?
Well, I've had 2 bad weeks, Dave.
That's
so
okay.
I went 8-9 last week. On best bets, I'm at 50%, 9-9. So actually that's slightly losing money. Going to make that back. Don't worry. Now still on overall bets, I am 69-57. So I do better on bets I don't want to make than bets I want to make.
All right. Well, I want to remind you that our gambling predictions are gold with the one, the only Caleb Calhoun. Rocky Top Tom saying UCLA cost me a lot last week. I'm not going to say that word, Tom. But it's brought to you by Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee. Please sign up for Zen Sports if you gamble. We would greatly appreciate that. Travis saying the OU on Arkansas killed me, the over under there. But Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares. On Zen Sports, what you see is what you get. And with their cash rewards program, you get a lot of cash. For a welcome bonus, earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the promo code HOOKED. That's HOOKED. Unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting, keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that. And refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume on cash rewards too. Zen Sports bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you bet big on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Must be 21 and over and in Tennessee to bet. So tell me, Caleb, what is your greatest pick? Because I see the first one on offthehooksports.com, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you.
That's crazy.
Vanderbilt, you love the doors.
I have Vanderbilt covering against Georgia. I think Georgia wins. Okay, everybody's overreacting to Georgia week to week. Georgia was on a mission last week because people irresponsibly overreacted to them struggling at Auburn when I didn't think that was a big deal. And they were so annoyed playing an undefeated team at home. They were like, all right, we're just going to show the world. And you know this. They play up to their opponent when they need to, and they beat the brakes off Kentucky. Georgia's going to be back to not caring. So I think this week they don't care. They're playing at Vanderbilt. I do still think they have offensive issues, and I do still not believe in Mike Bobo. So I think they'll get like a 35-0 lead and then pull everybody. And so Vanderbilt might score a touchdown at the end, and Georgia wins something like 35-7 or 35-10.
On the message board, take Notre Dame minus the 2.5 and Indiana plus 33. There you go, Travis. Maybe we'll have Travis and Caleb go at it sometime in picks. You love the Razorbacks at Alabama.
I do. Alabama's going to win, but it's a 20-point spread, and Arkansas has been within one possession of every team but Texas A&M, and that was due to a lot of turnovers. I think that Arkansas is getting Alabama Alabama just had an emotional win over Texas A&M last week that they had to fight for. You know they're preparing for Tennessee next week coming to town. A little bit of a trap game for them, so I think they're going to play a little bit sloppy. Now, this game's going to hit the over because I think KJ Jefferson's going to go off. I think the Vanderbilt-Georgia game's going to hit the under.
Okay, you're 0-2 in my book.
That's crazy.
But you're better at this than me. I like Alabama because I think they found their quarterback in Jalen Milroe, and I think he's going to continue to grow. But we'll see about KJ Jefferson. That surprised me a little bit that he would go off. South Carolina -2 against Florida. I really like this pick a lot.
Hey now.
Because I don't think Florida's very good.
Yeah, I think South Carolina actually coming off a bye. I think they beat the brakes off Florida. I think Spencer Rattler returns to the Spencer Rattler he was, which is why I'm also high on the over 51.5. I think Spencer Rattler I think South Carolina might hit 40.
This is one of those, I don't gamble because I'm not very good at it. But when I feel certain about a game, I'm like 90%. For some reason, this just hits me as I feel certain about this game. So I would be stunned if you were wrong on this one, especially coming off the bye. Oregon +3 at Washington. I'm with you on that one as well. Why do you like the Quack Quack Ducks?
So this is the game of the week. 2 top 10 undefeated Pac-12 teams. Man, Pac-12 football's been great this year. It's just been such a great spectacle.
It has been.
It has. But I'm making my pick thinking like an SEC guy, Dave. Or Washington is at home and has the better quarterback. But Oregon, Dan Lanning coming from Georgia, has stacked their defensive and offensive lines. In a close game of 2 undefeated top 10 teams, the line of scrimmage team wins, don't they?
Yeah, typically they do. So yeah, I will go with you on this pick as well. And if you want to run through before we get to your best bets,
and with the line of scrimmage game, by the way, it's going to hit the under 66. Michael Penix is going to get a little exposed against that team.
Yep. We'll see. So the rest of your picks, let's skip Tennessee before we get to your best bet. You've got Auburn +11 and the under at 61. Kentucky -2.5 against Missouri. The over at
51.
The over at 51.5. Southern California. I'm going to stop at this one. +3 at Notre Dame. You've got the under at 59. Here's the problem. I don't think USC can stop anybody. So I would take the over, actually.
I think that, but I don't think Notre Dame's great at scoring. And we'll save this for my best bets, but there's a significant reason that people are too high on Notre Dame this week, and I'll break that down in a second.
Okay.
We get to the best bets.
UNC -3.5 against Miami and the over 57.5. Oregon State -3.5 versus UCLA. You like the over 54. So take me through your best bets there on offthehooksports.com. Take me through your best bets. Here we go.
All right, so the one I'm least confident in are the best bets. I like Florida State -17.5 against Syracuse. Syracuse has gotten blown out 2 weeks in a row, and Florida State's been preparing for Syracuse for 2 weeks because last week they were playing Virginia Tech, which is not a team you have to prepare for. So I think Florida State covers pretty easily. Now, Tennessee, Texas A&M.
I agree with that.
You agree with that? Okay. Tennessee, Texas A&M.
You want to save that one for last? Let's save that one for last.
Okay, let's save that one for last. Fair enough. USC Notre Dame. I'm not just taking USC +3. USC money line. And I'm going to tell you why. Notre Dame's lost to Louisville. Louisville's overrated. And so that's a bad loss. But two, and more importantly, Dave, I have learned this with college football. Always fade Notre Dame during the week of midterms because they don't allow their athletes to play on a different schedule. And so
what is the money line? Because I would take the money line on this as well.
It's like +110 or something like that. So it's not much, but hey, you can win.
I'm taking it. All right.
Yeah.
So are we at Tennessee now?
Yes, we'll go at Tennessee, and I'll give you both. So, Tennessee, Texas A&M. I'm sticking with chalk fundamentals, which is that Texas A&M has an emotional loss. They're on the road, and Tennessee's coming off a bye, which is why I think Tennessee covers a 3-point spread. However, the surefire bet, the bet of the week, even not just if you're covering Tennessee specifically.
Hey now.
You're with that on the okay.
I'm not telling you I'm with that. You just got Hank Kingsley excited.
Hey now.
Okay, so the bet of the week is Tennessee, Texas A&M under 54. These two teams ain't scoring 54 points to combine, Dave. It's not happening.
I don't want to be with the masses on this. Josh kind of hinted at the same. A lot of people are making this pick. It just seems too easy. And I'm going to go with I have no reason with the over-under not to pick the under, except that everybody is picking the under. So I'm going to say.
That's crazy.
But that's also why I don't gamble. Okay,
you're fading Vegas just to fade them is what you're doing.
Exactly. I have no good reason other than everybody's doing it.
I'm sorry. It is.
That's lame. I know.
It's first of all, Matt, let's think from Tennessee's perspective. We know what they rely on running the ball, and they're not going to run the ball as well in this game because of Texas A&M's D line. We can't trust Joe Milton to beat them through the air. On the other side, Max Johnson is good only when he has time, but Texas A&M is not good at protecting. So Tennessee's got a great pass rush. They're going to be sacking Max Johnson all night. If the over under, I'm just going to make this prediction. If it goes over 54, Dave, it'll be because there's 2 defensive touchdowns in the game.
Ooh, which could happen with a pretty good front seven on both sides of the ball. I think Tennessee's going to be better at protecting than A&M will. Travis says Tennessee will score 54 by themselves if I bet the under. It's exactly right. Isn't that the case? Like your team wins when you somehow some sort of way bet against them. That's usually how it works out. Our picks brought to you, as we mentioned, by Zen Sports. But do me a favor, as you support our sponsors, and we greatly appreciate that. They're right below. Do me a favor and follow this, and you'll be glad you did. It's on Facebook. It's Sports Treasures. Over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best in sports memorabilia, daily updates. They send stuff out all the time. It's Sports Treasures TN under Facebook, Sports Treasures TN. So check it out. I'll 50-50 on your picks, which isn't that why it's gambling. I would think that would be the case. And
I love the questions about the Washington quarterback's name.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of questions. It's is it Penix or Penix?
It's Penix.
Yeah. Okay. Travis says A&M versus Washington in a bowl game. Max Johnson versus Penix. What a storyline.
Hey, there was a year where Arkansas played South Carolina and the quarterbacks were Casey Dick, John David Booty. They were playing the Cox, and the head coach of Arkansas was Houston Nutt.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. That's Caleb's picks. You can find them on offthehooksports.com. At the end of the show yesterday, after we signed off, Travis said, buy Dave's book. I appreciate that, Travis. I've gotten a couple of reviews, which have been positive, and that means a lot. It's right below. And again, through Saturday, we're going to give $6 for every book sold to the Peyton Walker Fund to provide AEDs to programs that need them. And we're talking about a lot of rural area programs, college football, high school football programs. We're talking about inner city football programs. They could save a life. So, and hopefully you enjoy the read as well. But you can order that right below. So don't forget that is in effect until Saturday. And I hope you enjoy the book. I really do. And got a special announcement about the book coming up next week as well. So we look forward to that. For the one, the only Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation